Welcome to a guide on not just how to play Luna, but how to maximize their kit to the best degree possible. In this guide, I'll be breaking down how Luna's kit works, some cool tricks, combos, and tips with Luna, and so much more. So let's go ahead and get right into it. To get us started, let's go over her abilities so we know what they can do and how to best possibly use them. First up, we have Luna's right click, Absolute Zero. This ability freezes people, applying a single target stun to anyone hit by it. It also activates her passive, Cryo Heart, which passively heals her for a few seconds after she casts it. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, to the average player, yes. But if you're looking to maximize the effectiveness of this ability, it's very good for self-peel. So it's best to save it if the enemy dive is on you or an ally close to you to help peel them off and set up a kill. Now, if we extend this concept, let's think about enemies ulting. Most ults in this game are not CC immune, meaning that they can get disrupted by CC abilities, such as Absolute Zero. So if you know everyone is getting their ults up and they have massive ones, such as Doctor Strange for example, then it's best to save this ability for those ults, because during their casting animations, you can hit them with a quick stun, disrupting and potentially resetting their ult. These kinds of plays alone can win your team a massive fight or even the game, so you should be consistently looking for these kinds of opportunities during the game. Next up, we have Luna's E ability, Share the Stage, also known as Guard. This ability attaches onto an ally of your choosing and heals them for 35% of the healing you do. It's common to attach this ability to allies you won't see as often, such as DPS characters like Black Panther, Psylocke, or pretty much any ally that dives. The reason being is because as you're healing someone else, say your tanks for example, no matter where that player with Guard on them is, they will get healed for a portion of that healing. Now, even though this is pretty common to do, and I do tend to do this a lot, especially with assassins, one tip I can give is to assess the situation. Because Guard is healing for 35% of what you're healing for, right? So if my tanks are taking a ton of damage and I throw Guard on, say, Groot, for example, and start healing him, he'll be healing for a ton. This extra healing could be the difference between life or death for my ally. In fact, if you get really good with it, you can just start throwing Guard on whoever you want to heal, since there is no cooldown on it. But again, just assess what's going on in the game. If your allies aren't taking that much damage and you have another healer that heals a ton, like Cloak and Dagger for example, then it's probably best to just keep it on your dive since you don't know when the next opportunity to throw it on them will be. Luna's last base ability is her left shift, Ice Arts. This ability is going to be Luna's main high damage, high healing ability. It pretty much transforms Luna's auto attacks to a single shot. These shots do about 50 damage per hit and 75 healing per hit to allies. This healing is actually increased by about 15 HP from her base auto attacks, which do about 60 HP if you hit the full burst. It also activates her Cryo Heart passive, giving her additional health regen over a few seconds when she activates it. So it's going to be a really nice self-sustain tool. My best advice for this ability is using it as a secret weapon for healing. I usually like to activate this when I'm low and my support refuses to heal me, when I'm getting gone on and I need to self-sustain, or if I just can't hit my allies with my regular auto attacks. But the major use case for this ability is when I have multiple allies that are low. Because this ability is healing so much so fast, it actually is really hard to outdamage Luna's healing while she's doing this, especially if she throws Guard onto an ally. Also, if you didn't know, her autos can go through allies, which means she's able to heal multiple allies if they're stacked. And the same goes for this ability as well. So I really like this, especially when they're about to ult, say a Groot ult for example, because it groups your allies all together and you can get massive heals on all of them at once. The same logic is also true for more narrow areas. Say you have to push through a small path to get to the objective, well Luna's Ice Arts is going to be extremely good in this case because you're going to be able to heal multiple allies at once with it. Now, before we get into Luna's ultimate, I briefly just want to touch up on her extra team-up ability. She gets an extra ability when she has Iron Fist on her team. This ability is called Frozen Chi, and it shoots out a blast of cold air around Luna that damages enemies, heals you and nearby allies, and it also knocks back and slows enemies. Not much else needs to be said, as this team-up is rare from my experience, but it is a really cool ability. And if you do get to use it as you would Luna's stun, mainly for self-peel and sustain when enemies go on you. Now off to our ultimate. This ability, Fate of Both Worlds, also known as the most OP ult in the game, is a massive area of healing or damage amplification that lasts for about 12 seconds. From my experience, Luna ult is actually a pretty hard ability. The thing that makes it hard isn't the mechanics, but knowing when to use it. You can engage with it, you can save it as a counter engage tool to say cancel Psylocke ult, or you can use it to save yourself if you're about to die. But chances are if you do that last one, your teammates might get mad at you if it's not the right situation. The thing is, you're going to have bad ults. I have bad ults all the time. But the goal is to learn and improve upon your ulting skills, so you're more likely to have good ults in the future. The way I like to think about it is going into a fight with a plan. If I know they have a Psylocke, Doctor Strange, or really any character that's going to have a massive ult, I try to save my ult for that. If I can negate a few big ults with my ult, I count that as a win. But there are cases where I need to initiate with my ult. These would be situations like if they have you trapped in an area and you need to push through, like in convoy around those tight corners, or it's domination and you need to use it to hold the point. Sometimes you do need to ult if you're about to die, but these situations can be the trickiest because you might have to hold it for an ult or a push that you know might be coming in the near future. So sometimes you just have to psych your own life for the greater good. Now, I said to go in with a plan, but it's also best not to try to overthink the ults. I find my best ults come from just instinct and reaction, whereas my worst ults tend to come from me just trying to think about a situation too much. So you want to be somewhere in the middle ground between those two. Come into the fight with a plan, but ultimately intuition should override in that split-second decision. Getting better at making these split-second decisions is honestly just built off experience. The more you play Luna, the better you'll get at using her ultimate. Now that we've gone over her abilities, let's get into some cool tricks, tips, and combos you can do with her. Since we just went over Luna's ult, I'll start here. I don't know if you noticed in some of the clips I just showed you, but I was stance switching extremely fast. This is something people commonly do at a higher level with Luna ult. That is spam changing between the healing and damage increase stances of this ability. The reason a lot of people do this is because usually it gives the optimal balance between extra damage for your allies and health to them. However, I'm not the biggest fan of this in most situations. I usually like to keep it on damage increase until I see an ally getting weak, then I'll change it to healing, then switch back once they're healed. In my opinion, this is harder to do because you have to be way more aware of how much damage your teammates are taking. But sometimes if there's too much going on, then I'll just spam both stances. The main reason why I don't like spamming as much is because if there's a lot of damage going to my ally, it won't be able to heal them enough and they'll end up dying. This has happened to me and I've seen it happen to allies multiple times. But don't get me wrong, both of these methods are good and you can choose either one. The one thing you absolutely don't want to do is just sit in the healing stance the whole ult, because then you're losing out on literally what 50% of her ult does. Now I want to give some tips for Ice Arts, Luna's left shift ability. I said it was her high damage ability, and while this is true, especially because that has a piercing effect, damage-wise it's actually better to use your auto attacks, at least if they're up close, because your auto attacks can crit, but Ice Arts can't. So technically you can get more damage off with your base auto attacks as long as you're critting. One tip I would also like to give for this ability is to activate it towards the end of your auto chain, aside from activating it when multiple allies are weak. The reason why I like doing this is because your autos are automatically getting reloaded after Ice Arts is done, so you're effectively canceling that animation and minimizing any downtime you might have. And my last tip with this ability is the combo I mentioned earlier, but it's to throw guard onto an ally and use Ice Arts on them. You're going to get the maximum amount of healing onto that ally, which should be around 145 HP total per shot. Another cool trick you can do with Luna is using your speed boost, your ice skating passive, to get to places you otherwise wouldn't be able to. The thing about Luna is that she doesn't really have a vertical mobility tool. In fact, she doesn't really have any mobility tool, so she can't really get to places that she can't walk or jump to. However, you can use the additional speed she gets from her speed boost passive. The additional momentum will carry over onto the jump, so if you jump while this passive is in use, you'll get much higher jumps, allowing you to reach places you otherwise wouldn't normally be able to reach. Next, let's go over how to position as Luna. Luna, just like any other healer, is going to get dove. However, most other healers have better kits at dealing with this dive. Luna really only has two things going for her. Her main form of peel, which is her stun, and when she activates one of the passive enabled abilities we talked about earlier, she gets healing. But that's it. That's all she gets. So she's going to get dove pretty easily. Therefore, you definitely want to position the back and away from their damage. But of course, you want to do this with every healer. You want to make sure that the other healer can see and heal you. And at the first sign of trouble, rather than just instinctively running back, like most players do, you want to walk towards your allies that can help you as you heal them and yourself. The big thing is you don't have any repositioning abilities like someone such as Cloak and Dagger, so you just want to sit in that back line. But at the end of the day, if I'm getting hard dove time and time again on Luna, I just end up switching off.
They have an Iron Fist, Venom, yeah, they're dive comping, bro.
Magic on me. Alright, this is gonna be a much easier C&D game. I'm swapping. Lastly, I want to go over some of Luna's counters. Not too much counters Luna in this game. There's no anti-heal, it's very hard to DPS through Luna ult, and it doesn't really feel like she has any downsides besides being susceptible to hard dive. However, one thing that does really screw Luna over are ults that can one-shot you. Wow. These are going to be characters like Iron Man, Magneto, and the infamous Hawkeye who can one-shot headshot you for some reason. See, Luna's going to be able to heal through a ton of damage, but she can't heal through something that one-shots you, and those ults can completely negate her ult. In fact, I've played against a lot of really good Iron Mans that just save ult for when I ult. So in these cases, again, I just switch off and play something else like Cloak and Dagger who can just immune these ults. But that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed this guide and learned a lot from it. Luna is the best healer in the game, at least when it comes down to pure numbers. And although she does struggle with immobility and dive, she makes up for that by high healing, decent damage, and having the best ult in the game, which is why she's banned a ton at a high level. But I just want to thank you again for watching, and until the next video, see ya!